Elaine Powell here, thought disruptor, keynote speaker, working with organizations and their teams to help elevate their performance, deal with challenges with powerful thinking disciplines through my Think methodology. So I've been sharing 3 previous videos on the David Beckham documentary, which is really, really engaging to watch. And especially if you can just be a viewer and have it as an entertainment, but I also like to look at what are they doing in their thinking that has their actions create some extraordinary results. So in the first video, we looked at the first one, which I saw, which was he's passionate about football. The second was that he was consistent in his practice of his art form, whatever your art form might be. And yesterday, or in the third video, we were looking at the third point, which was he was being his word. And are you being your word in areas of your life? And if areas aren't working, it's highly likely you're not being consistent in being your word. And what are the things that take you out of being your word? And today in the last video, the last thing, I could share many, many things, but I just wanted to do just 4 key areas. I saw that David followed his intuition. And that's something that many of us, we all have our intuition. Some people call it your gut. Some people call it following your heart. Despite what other people are thinking and saying, David Beckham left, Manchester United and went to Real Madrid because he wasn't as happy, and he was listening to that internal guide that was like, there's something else for you. And people were like, you're crazy. What are you doing? You're uprooting your family. And then off he went to Real Madrid. I think there was Barcelona was in the conversation, but he listened to his intuition. Are you listening to your intuition? When he was in Real Madrid, then the opportunity came up to go to America to play soccer over there. And once again, people are like, you crazy. You're leaving one of the best teams in the world to go all the way to America. Once again, he followed his intuition. And all those stepping stones, when you watch it, has led him to become one of the most well-known and celebrated footballers in the world. He's now, has his own club in Miami. And everything he's done, I see that he listens to his intuition. So are you listening to your intuition that's not shrouded by fear? Like, sit back. What are you really feeling? I definitely listen to my intuition, and that's led me to live in the USA, in Atlanta. My intuition, my calling last year as I was living in Kilburn in London was there was something more for me. I knew I had so much to share. And I felt like I was going to explode with my joy and excitement about going out, speaking and sharing the message. And I listened to my intuition, and my intuition said, pack up your flat in London and go over to Mexico and apply for a US visa. And so I said, okay, not knowing I'd get a US visa, I packed up my apartment and I went to live in Mexico because a friend was there. So it was a nice place. It was winter as well. And if you know winter in the UK, it's pretty cold. So I was in Mexico, and then I started the process of applying for a US visa. Now, I never knew I was going to get a US visa. So there's an element of hope and faith, but also I had to take the actions. So be consistent in being my word, to take the actions that my immigration lawyer said I needed to take in order to send in an application. And that's what I did. And then we applied in more or less the end of January. And March, I found out that I had been accepted for a 3-year visa. And by June, I was living in Atlanta. So I know that I always say, even when I coach people around speaking and TEDx, which I also do, I say people can say what they want to you, but always trust your intuition. Always trust your guide. Now, you may not be spiritual, you may may not believe in God. I do. And I believe that that's, God knocking on the door saying, hello, this is the next step for you. And I say, listen to your intuition that isn't shrouded by fear. Listen to that voice. If the voice is all fear and, oh my gosh, what about this? And as Les Brown said, how is none of your business. How will show up. In my opinion, your game is to listen to your intuition, declare it, decide you're going to do it, commit, and then just take the actions and trust that if you're taking the actions, eventually you will fulfill on what you've given your word to. So my last point is on really listening to your intuition. As a keynote speaker, I'm always listening to my intuition to share a quote or a little voice that says, oh, share this story, or do a pair share with the audience, because I'm in flow. And I believe when you're in flow, it's not just you there. You're listening to sort of wisdom that's bigger than you, because you get yourself even though I talk about thinking, part of the job is to quieten down the brain so you can listen to your heart and your feelings. You can listen to what your intuition is saying. But if you're too busy up here, it's going to be really hard. And if you've ever worked with high performers, which I have, especially, those in the sports field or music artists, in that fear, they get into flow, especially sports people, and you're not up here in the thinking. You go down into your intuition, you go down into your feelings, you love what you're doing, and then you can just be in flow. The cognitive thinking closes down. This becomes very quiet when you're enjoying what you're doing. So if you play sport, it's just a joy and you're in flow. You're just moving. You're not even thinking about it, cognitively aware of it. You're just in flow. I used to play the classical guitar. My fingers knew it's all those 4 steps. I was passionate about playing guitar. I was consistent. So I just practice and practice and practice the same notes over and over and over again till my fingers were stiff and my wrist was hurting, because you have to hold your hand like that as you play the guitar, like this. I was my word, because I said I would practice all those days. And eventually I was just in flow, because I was just in my intuition to just do this note and just to freestyle here. And so those 4 keys, I believe, if you're consistent with them and you put it into practice, you will get a result. And then you can always look at the result. Does it work? Does it not work? What's missing that I need to put it in place the next time? And that's what we do as performers. That's what I do as a keynote speaker. I've never delivered the perfect keynote. I'm always looking what worked and what do I need to improve? And then I put that improvement in the next time. And then I look at what worked, what needs to be improved. I put it in. So you can see that it just keeps on upping your game and your performance. Did with me when I started at Toastmasters, how many years ago? In 2009. And look at me now, a keynote speaker in the US. And it's because of passion. They're the 4 keys: passion, consistency, learning my art form. That's what speaking is. It's an art form. It's a performance. Being my word, to do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. And lastly, always listening to my intuition, which has led me to the US. So I would love to read your comments about what you're hearing for yourself, regards to intuition, with regards to when you've listened to your intuition, what's happened, and when you haven't listened, what's happened as well. And yeah, any thoughts on these 4 keys that I've been sharing? All right. So I hope you've got a lot out of these videos. As always, if you don't put it into action, if you don't use it, you lose it. So be consistent in all you're doing. So that's it from me, and I'll share some other videos on different subjects around thinking, because I am the thought disruptor. I'm there to disrupt your thinking so that we can build it up and improve it as you go through your career and your life. Until the next time, take care.